Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. It is the renewal, despite what anybody else says, of the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. Furman and Wofford in Spartanburg this week, and we will have all of the action for you on the Ingles Furman Radio Network. As always, I am Dan Scott. I'll be joined by David Cobb and Tom Van Hoy. Looking forward to getting back out there and kind of getting last week's taste out of our mouths individually and collectively. Furman coming off of its worst game of the season, 5 turnovers, a 52-7 loss at Western Carolina a week ago. Catamounts played their best game of the year. Furman played its worst game of the year, and the score was indicative of that. And now the Paladins have to bounce back and win in a place they've only won once since 2007. That's Gibbs Stadium in Spartanburg. And you remember the last time the Paladins went to Wofford 2 years ago, undefeated in the league, the number 3 national seed, and got beat 19-13 in a game that Tyler Huff did not play because of injury. And the Paladins squandered some opportunities, turned it over a couple of times. Still finished the number 7 seed overall, and as we know how that season played out, came within overtime, one play in overtime, of coming back here to host the national semifinals. Had they won that game at Wofford, they would have played that quarterfinal game here at Paladin Stadium. But that's ancient history. Got to go to a place where it's been tough to win against a team that finally, for the first time this season under third-year head coach Sean Watson, has to be feeling pretty good about itself, because after starting 0-5, the Terriers got their first win of the season last week against Norfolk State. They're in a stretch of 3 consecutive home games for the first time in a long time at Gibbs Stadium, and they also last week debuted a brand-new starting quarterback who led them to that victory. We will talk about all of that as we move forward in this week's preview. Taking a look at the series, Paladins lead at 56-35-7, began December 14th, 1889. It was the first game in the state of South Carolina's history and the first football rivalry in the Deep South. Georgia and Auburn like to claim they are. Don't pay attention to them. This is the game. Paladins are 21-23-2 against the Terriers in Spartanburg, and mentioned 1-8 there since 2007, lost that 1913 trip the last time in 2023. When we start looking at the statistical comparisons between the teams, this is one of the few opponents that Furman's actually going to have an advantage rushing the football. 103 yards on the ground per game for the Paladins, and just 66.5 for Wofford. And for those of us who have known Wofford football for a couple of decades now, how funny is it to look at that rushing number and not see it in the high 2s or maybe even in the 3s back in the older days. But that's what it is now. Passing, 267.5 to 167.3, so total offense favors the Paladins, 370 to 238. Paladins are scoring 9 more points a game. They are, however, giving up more points per game. They are allowing significantly more, not significantly more, but allowing more total defense. Wofford giving up 385 and Furman 409.7, and allowing almost 7.5 points more than Wofford's defense is. Of course, that number jumped dramatically after giving up 52 to Western Carolina last week. The turnover margins, the Paladins are in the negative at a -3, and Wofford is sitting there at +2 right now. And time of possession, if that means anything, Furman with more time of possession than Wofford does. And the sacks, Furman has allowed just 1.3 sacks per game. Wofford almost 3 sacks per game. So that's kind of a look at the overall team numbers. When you look at this Wofford club, though, you have to start looking at it a little differently based simply on what they did last week in the win over Norfolk State. J.T. Fayard, the sophomore, made his first start, and he went 23 out of 34 for 248 yards, 2 touchdowns, and just a single interception. And Wofford got its first win of the season after dropping their first 5 games. They are 1-5, 0-2 in the league. The Paladins are 4-2 through 6 games and 2-1 in SoCon play. Furman will be, according to the official depth chart, without the services of both Evan Grant and Jakeith Hamilton. Hamilton was injured on the 4th play of the game last week at Western Carolina, and also still without Jackson Pryor in the passing game. So the starting wide receivers, according to the official depth chart this week, will be Ethan Harris, Kerry King, and Devin Hester Jr. And playing backup roles will be Nick Regano, his 3rd game since getting healthy, the graduate student, and redshirt freshman Landon James, who we saw for the first time last week up in Cullowhee. Taking a look at the Southern Conference standings right now, Mercer continues to lead the league at 4-0. They, of course, played out of league and won at Princeton last week, so they're 5-1 overall. Western Carolina, the only other remaining undefeated team after knocking off Furman last week at 3-0, 4-3 overall. Then there are the Paladins and the Citadel sitting at 2-1. Citadel comes to Paladin Stadium next week. Chattanooga 1-1, only 2 conference games in their first 6. ETSU at 1-2, 3-4 overall. VMI, Wofford, and Samford all looking for their first wins in conference play, and Samford still looking for its first win of the season overall. And as we look at the schedule this week, Furman and Wofford will kick off the SoCon schedule at noon. ETSU at Chattanooga at 1:30. Samford will be at VMI looking for its first conference win and first win of the season at VMI at 1:30. And in Western, coming off of the big win over Furman, has to go down to the Citadel at Johnson Haygood Stadium starting at 2 p.m. So it's going to be an entertaining matchup, as it usually is between these two teams. Television-wise, it's going to be not only ESPN Plus, but a Nexstar game, so it'll be on linear TV with Pete Yanity and crew doing their thing. We'll just encourage you to watch that broadcast if you're not going to make the trip, but turn the sound down and listen to our radio broadcast. We will begin with the Pepsi countdown to kickoff at 10:30 in the morning, a little breakfast and football for you, with the kick coming at noon at Gibbs Stadium between Furman and Wofford. We hope that you will make the trip and root the Paladins on. Furman needs a big bounce-back week. It's going to be really intriguing to see, with all of the other students on campus gone this week. Furman is on fall break, so just the athletes are here. If that assisted Clay Hendricks and his coaching staff at all in kind of the circling the wagons, no distractions, bouncing back from that loss to Western Carolina and repurposing and refocusing for what is still a season that can bear a lot of fruit for this Furman team. Still 5 conference games remaining amongst the 6 games left on the schedule. Got a chance to run the table, get a playoff bid, still a chance to win the conference if you can get some help. So a lot to play for. Did this week kind of being able to concentrate on nothing but football help? I guess we're going to find out very, very soon. So that is what's coming up on Saturday. Again, our broadcast with the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff will begin at 10:30 in the morning, and we look forward to talking with you then. Until then, for all of us at Furman, I'm Dan Scott, saying God bless you, and so long, everybody.